Hi, everyone. I want to talk to you guys about the difference between being religious and being spiritual. And there are definite differences between the two, and it can get a little complicated, but I want to break it down and help you guys understand the difference. And that way, you have a better idea of what you are in your life and on your path. The concept of religion has been around for many, many, many years. I mean, it predates our written word. So, religion has been around for quite a long time, and it's man's way of understanding life, the universe, of understanding the divinity or God. So, religion has this formula that it goes by. And essentially, religion is a series of stories, ideas or concepts, and rules to live your life by. And that's religion. It's just this formula for how to approach life or how to live life. And it's usually man's way of trying to understand the universe, God, or the idea of God, trying to understand ourselves and trying to understand our place here in life. That is how I understand religion. Spirituality is a little different. Spirituality is more based in the individual's experience and how they are aware or how they are perceiving their experience in life and situations and circumstances and events and so forth. So, spirituality is a little more personal, I believe, than religion. Religion, it depends on which religion you want to talk about because there's so many religions out there. And each of those major religions have sub-religions. They're like religions within religions within religions. I mean, everybody has an idea or everybody has an opinion for how things should go. And then individuals take a religion, they break off of the main organization, and then they build their own individualized aspect of what that religion is, or the individualized experience. So it's their way of trying to make it personal, and I think that that's why that happens, is because people are trying to personalize something and really help themselves to fit it with their own agenda or with their own idea for life. Spirituality, you look at spiritual people, there are a whole host of different types of personalities and individuals who are spiritual. And when it comes down to it, it really comes down to what works for you. You can be religious and that can work very well for you, or it can inhibit and restrict you. You can be spiritual and it can work very well for you, or it can inhibit and limit you. I do not consider myself to be religious. I consider myself to be spiritual. I was raised as a Catholic. My whole family is still Catholic, and many of them still go to church on Sundays. I don't. I'm not an active member of the Catholic faith, but I still appreciate some of the ideas and some of the rituals that were involved in being Catholic. You walk into a church and you smell the scent of the pews and the wood and the incense that they use and all of that. I enjoy some of those things. But of course, the Catholic religion, the Catholic faith comes with a lot of dogma, and there's a rich history of just really radicalized behavior and trying to force others to conform to the beliefs of Catholicism. And, Catholicism or being Catholic is just an aspect of Christianity. It's part of the Christian faith. I was raised Catholic. It was what I was brought up to. I went to catechism. I did my first communion. I did not go all the way. I didn't complete my confirmation. And there's this series of phases that you have to take in order to get up to where you're indoctrinated into the religion or the faith. So I didn't go all the way up. I think after my first communion, I simply started to drift away from the Catholic faith because I started to have problems with the faith itself. And like I said, and this is not me bashing religion, but I just had my own issues with Catholicism and with Christianity that I couldn't resolve within myself, that inner conflict. If you don't know already, then you should know that I am gay. And I came to terms with my sexuality when I was a teenager. And it took me a long time to actually come to terms with my sexuality because I was brought up a certain way. And many people were expecting me to grow up and get married and have children. And I was going to be a good father and a good provider. And people had expectations for me. I was a nice kid. People expected me to be a nice husband and a nice father. And it really, that whole expectation and the pressure of being something that others wanted me to be was really one of the reasons why I had such trouble coming to terms with my sexuality. But it came down to, me having questions about myself, who I was, who I wanted to be, and if that was going to be okay, and if I was going to be okay with that. And in those early days when I was still questioning myself and my sexuality, I went to the people who were closest to me. I went to family members, I went to cousins, I went to relatives and asked them, and I, at that time, was going through this spiritual awakening where I was reading other literature and books and reading about things that weren't necessarily coming from the Catholic religion. They were coming from spiritual sources. And people had other ideas about why things were the way they were. And this one idea I had read about was that the reason why some people are born gay is because they have had several lifetimes as a female, and then when they reincarnate and come in as a male, their personality identifies with the female, and so even though physically and physiologically they are male, they're still identifying with that personality, those traits, or that type of individual or that sex. So when I heard that, it just was like, wow, like that was a very shocking idea for me to be made aware of, because it made so much sense. Like that makes so much sense why I had these desires, to want to be more feminine. And I actually felt when I was younger the need or the desire to want to put on dresses and dress in women's clothing. And so I could never understand why I was the way that I was until I got older and I began to read. And so that was one of the first ideas I read or I heard about that made sense to me. Now I have a little more of an expanded view of why. And I think that it comes more down to the soul and the spirit choosing to come into a body for specific reasons, and wanting to experience certain things through this experience, through this process, through my sexuality, my experience as a gay man, my spirit wanting to gain certain experiences. So I feel that this is something that my spirit has chosen to embark on so that it can have those experiences, so that it can gain that information. But that also made a lot of sense for me. And I still sometimes feel that may also be a probability that people have been born, over and over again as a female, and then they come into life and they're in a male's body and they're like, well, what the hell is all this? So I do feel that there's a place for that. But when I heard about that idea, it changed my view of being gay. It helps me to embrace my sexuality and to realize that there was a bigger picture in play, and I just didn't understand that bigger picture. So all those stories about gay people go to hell, or it's not acceptable and the Bible says it's so, and blah 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 blah, that didn't really feel right to me. And that was part of the conflict, because I knew who I was and I wasn't a bad person. I didn't go out and try to hurt other people or do bad things, right? I didn't try to be that. I tried to do my very best. I tried to be a good person. I tried to be nice to other people and kind. And because I was something that I felt at the time that I didn't choose, that felt so natural for me to be, I was condemned. And that idea didn't make any sense to me. So as soon as I hit my sexuality and that came up as a topic of conversation for me, an internal conflict began, and I had to figure that out. And the more I embraced spiritual ideas and concepts, the further away I began to pull away from Catholicism and the ideas that were presented in the faith. So I remember once jogging with a relative, and I asked my relative, I said, this is what I heard about being gay and why it may be the way that it is. And I don't think I think she was very much attached to Catholicism, because at that point it's like she wasn't even my relative, and she was more concerned with like what was being written in a book. And she says, well, this is what this says in this book, and this is what this is about. So, and there was really no room for that to not be right. That just is what that was the way that it was. And this individual, I looked up to them. I spent a lot of time around them, and I really not only appreciated this person's influence in my life, but I also just saw them as like a big sister. And I everything that they said, I took it and just ran with it. So when I was given this advice and this piece of information, it just hit me in my stomach, and it did not feel right. It did not feel correct. It did not feel like this was the way it was supposed to be. And the concepts I was learning about through spirituality, through the research that I was doing, just felt more loving. It felt more obvious. It felt more logical. And so I decided at that time that I wasn't going to stick with everything that was coming out of, the Catholic faith, and that I wanted to know answers for myself from source directly. And I think that's when I first began to have a real relationship with what I call now God, which is, wanting to gain as much understanding and awareness about the world around us, the universe, us as human beings. And I wanted to get it directly from the source itself. I didn't want someone else to come and say, well, this is what they thought, this is how they felt, and that was the only truth. I wanted to have my own personal experience and to see things as clearly as I could from the universe itself in some form or fashion, other than just it being put in a book and that being, stated as the gospel. And I think that my experience in working through these conflicts, these inner challenges, is not an isolated incident. I think that a lot of people have issues with religion. You look at all the stories in any religion. I mean, you can look at Buddhism, you can look at Christianity, you can look at other faiths, and you can poke holes in a lot of stories, and they don't account for everything. I mean, the faiths, the religions don't account for everything. And that is my problem, is that they don't account for everything. And I think what I really appreciate about spirituality is that it is my direct experience that is giving me that information, that is helping me to understand and to see things as clearly as I can. My experience, how I perceive things. And I get to see others and try to see things from an objective perspective, and then make my own determination. And usually, when I make that determination, there's supporting evidence, or there are experiences that follow that support what it is that I've come to terms with, or I've come to understand personally in my own experience. So that is why I appreciate spirituality enough, because there aren't any rules, even though there may be people out there who say they're gurus, or who act as if they are the be-all know-all, who create rules for others to follow. There really aren't any rules. There aren't any guidelines. There aren't any written in stone principles that you have to follow. Your experience is the teaching process. It is your ability to understand things. Your experience is the teacher. So that's why I appreciate spirituality more. And spirituality is more about the idea that we are more beyond our physical bodies. Like, we are more than this. We are more than the physical self. And what is beyond that? There's really no way to determine that, because we're stuck in this physical body at the moment, and we are functioning within these parameters, which is what we call life, or earth, or the physical world. And you really won't know for sure what is and what isn't until after you've departed and you've left this environment. But there are a lot of experiences, a lot of stories out there, and I've had personal experiences that help me to understand what is the bigger picture, what more there is to life, than I've been able to understand through the process of going to Catholic school, or through the process of being in a religion. Now, I want to make this very clear. I don't have a problem with religion, because I think religion has a place. And, many people think that, well, religion's an issue. It's, there have been, during the Inquisition, millions of people were killed because they didn't believe in a faith, or because they had different ideas. And that's horrible. And that's history. And to this day, people are still being prosecuted and killed because of their religious beliefs. I do not condone that. I feel that is absolutely atrocious, horrible. That says more about the individual than it says about the religion, because I can write such and such on a wall and say this is what this is, and it's really up to the person to decide if they're going to use that to create something positive in the world from it, or to destroy and to harm and to cause pain. And being religious and being spiritual, regardless of whether you're either spiritual or religious, it doesn't matter, because being religious, being spiritual doesn't make you a good person. You can be the most religious person in the world. You can be the Pope, and you can also be the most highly spiritual person in the world, and you can still be a complete douchebag. Like, being those things doesn't make you a good human being, doesn't make you a good person. It is your actions, your behaviors, your thoughts, your intentions, and what you do in the world that decides who you are, and what you're doing, and how that benefits humanity. So you can be as religious as you want to believe, but it doesn't make you a good person. Your actions, your behaviors, your intentions, your what you put out into the world, that's what determines who you are and how you're going to be remembered, how you're going to be known in the world. My feeling about religion and the purpose that it serves is that it's a tool. Just like with spirituality, it's just a tool. It's a tool for you to understand yourself and the world around you, and to try to make sense of things. And even with a tool, some tools become obsolete after a while. Many years ago, when I was a teenager and I used to spend tons of time in meditation, I asked that question. I asked my higher self, I asked God in meditation. I said, what is the purpose of religion? Like, if all these destructive things can come out of a religion, what's the whole point? And, at that time, I had issues with religion. Today, I see that there are so many religious faiths out there that do a lot of good. And there's a lot of good that comes out of people with faith, and who follow certain principles in religious beliefs that do a lot of good in the world. We only hear about the horrible stuff. I mean, most of the news is about people being nasty and hurting each other or harming each other. But I asked a question, and I asked, what purpose does religion serve? The answer that I received was that, Fernando, religion are like a pair of shoes. All religions are like a pair of shoes. We walk barefoot, and sometimes we need to have covering. Sometimes we need protection. Sometimes we need certain shoes to do certain types of activities. So religion are like a pair of shoes. You use them, you put them on, and they can get you from point A to point B. When you get to a certain point, you may actually outgrow those pair of shoes, and if you keep them on too long, they will restrict you and could potentially hurt you. So that is how I feel about religion and how I've come to understand it, that religion serves a purpose. It helps others understand themselves, the world around them, and their connection to the divine, or to God, or to the universe. But at a certain point, you may outgrow that religious faith. You may outgrow some of those ideas, some of those beliefs. And if you hold to them, even though you are outgrowing them, even though that your spirit, that part of you that is desiring for more, if you outgrow religion and you stick to it, you are going to start to feel pain. You're going to start to feel restricted. It is going to hurt to hold on to that. And so you really need to open up, that just may mean opening up to different branches of that religious faith or belief system. That may just be opening up to different concepts and things. It doesn't mean you have to walk away from a religious affiliation or belief. It just means opening up to more. So there are a pair of shoes that you wear to get you from point A to point B. If they ever get restrictive, if you ever feel like this isn't enough, then take them off, or allow yourself to breathe for a moment so that you can understand more and receive more from life, because the answers are there. They're all around us. When I began to look for answers myself about life, the answers were all around us. But when you ask a question, the answers will come to you in people, in events, and in experiences. Life is the greatest teacher. So, religion may not give you all the answers, and if you want them, just ask and they will come to you. But if it does serve a purpose, if it is helping you to get through life, it helps you to understand life, then by all means continue to have your beliefs. There's nothing wrong with that. Alright guys, I hope this video has helped you understand some of the differences between being religious versus being spiritual. I would love your feedback. If you have a story about your experiences with either religion or with being spiritual, I would love to hear about them, so mention them in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe so that way you will be made aware of whenever my next video comes out. I look forward to our next time together. Bye!